That's also it also made me think of a compliment of your book is that it's not the traditional hustle culture mentality
Mhm.
that you see everywhere. Like you value sleep and you value rest,
Yeah,
and like recharging, and I think that's so crucial. I really hope that becomes the new trend is people that are putting a high priority on not burning out, right? And not
yeah,
like whose calendar has the most appointments, because that's not going to lead you to feeling fulfilled or recharged or any of that.
yeah.
So, with your sleep chapter, I thought it was interesting because you gave a lot of like neuroscience, right?
Hmm.
What happens cleaning out the plaque and kind of helping it preserve it against neurodegenerative disorders like
Hmm.
Alzheimer's or dementia. But you all the part that really got me was like the magic piece, which
Yeah.
was, all of these brilliant people got their ideas in their dreams. And
Hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar. I think it was Thomas Edison, and he had this protocol when he was trying to come up with a new invention. Is he would sit in front of the fire with these weight bearing, like those,
Hmm.
what do you call them? Like those like heavy ball iron balls with
Hmm.
plates underneath, and he would recline and he would get a little bit drowsy, so putting himself into a theta state,
Yeah,
and then just as he would dip, he would drop the balls, wake himself up, and then immediately journal.
yeah.
And then a lot of his ideas came that way. So I'm curious if you have an opinion on where these ideas are
Yeah.
coming from. Is it mystical? Do you do you have more like of a science
Yeah.
backed answer? Like, what's your theory?
I mean, I'd love to believe that there's a universal mind and we have access to it, and
Hmm.
and we're connected, and certain people have the same idea, roughly the same time. I can't, with authority say that, but I
Hmm.
choose to believe that there's an intelligence that's there.
Hmm.
Um, going back to the sleep and the restoration, I think that's really important because you reach, and then we can't be reaching all the time, right? You can't just be working out all the time. You reach,
Hmm.
and then you have to recover, and then you
Hmm.
repeat, right? So you reach, you recover, restore, and then you repeat, because health is wealth, right? We know
Hmm.
health is wealth. Connection is the new currency. Inner peace is the new rich. Service is the new success. Kindness is the new cool. As it's always has been, right? But I come from that place where you learn so you could earn, so you could return, kind of like what you were talking about in terms of giving back. And so that's the spirit and the kind of the soul of what we talk about. Going back to the power of sleep, yes, absolutely. If anyone's listening to this and they don't feel like they're getting if you're not waking up refreshed, if you feel tired or lethargic, you have brain fog, if you have trouble with long-term memory, those are all the benefits of getting good sleep. Because if you don't get a good night's sleep, you can't make decisions the next day. Your focus is everywhere. Your temperament is, very, sometimes we're not as rational or as kind the next day. But in addition to all that, we dream also. And so a lot of our creativity comes from the theta and the delta states. So we have different brainwave states, right? Beta is where we're awake, which is hopefully everyone who's listening right now is wide awake. Alpha, right below it, is the state of relaxed awareness. That's a state that we design and we create for people to rapidly learn, actually. It's where your conscious mind is set aside and we just absorb information quicker because we don't have that critic conscious. So, like, we are geniuses, right? But like our conscious mind can only handle so much. A lot of what we've learned is unconscious. Like you think about, I don't know, Ken, how many lyrics to songs do you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like in hundreds, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
thousands potentially. But how
Hmm.
many do you sit down with note cards and just like, study and do any of it? We learn best when we don't even realize we're learning, right? So we
Hmm.
all have that natural genius. But in the alpha state, that's where your conscious mind is set aside and you just absorb. Television will put you into an alpha state. If you've ever tried to talk to somebody, they're really into their movie or show and they don't hear you because they're in a trance
Hmm.
because of television programming, which is kind of interesting, like the word programming. Um, and it's
At
one
least they're
thing,
honest about it.
yeah, and it's depending on what we're watching is just, that's what's kind of going in. So beta alpha, underneath alpha is a theta state that you mentioned, and that's really the state of creativity. And there's certain things you could do to get into that. It's kind of like that in and out of sleep
Hmm.
state, like when you first wake up, when you're going to bed, you have all these thoughts. When you're taking a shower, I don't know,
Hmm.
like you, if you come up with these ideas, when you're taking a bath or a shower. Just it's always when you can't write things down. I took 5 showers this morning just to prep for our conversation, so I have a lot of good ideas for you. But but water puts us in that state, right? It
Mhm,
relaxes us, and it's a great fertile ground for new ideas, new inspiration. And then delta is when we're sleeping, and we'll probably spend about 20 years of our life sleeping, 20 full years, about 3 to 5 years total dreaming,
mm,
in that REM state. And that's pretty amazing because, as you mentioned, there's a lot of creation that happens in dream states.
mhm,
The ones I mentioned in the book, like Mary Shelley created Frankenstein in her dreams. Paul McCartney came up with the song Yesterday in his dream. A chemist created the framework of the periodic table in his dream. Elias Howe created the sewing machine, like, he's being hunted by people and they were throwing spears, but at the end of the spear, there was like a little hole and it gave him this idea for like a needle, and just the whole machine, right, came out of that. I know a lot of athletes, a lot of stories of athletes like Jack Nicklaus. He was shooting high 70s and he was in a real slump playing golf, and he had a dream about shifting his grip. Like, it was so real for him. And he got out on the course the next day, and he shaved like 10 points off of his game. So it's like your mind doesn't shut off at night. It's actually in some ways more active.
mhm,
And what is it doing besides cleaning out plaque and restoring and integrating long-term memories? It's coming up with ideas. And it's one of the things, activities I do before I go to bed. I'll introduce a question in my mind before I go to bed, and kind of as a preface. Have you ever like had to wake up a certain time and you set the alarm clock? Maybe it's particularly an early time. Maybe you have to catch a flight or do something for your child. Um, and you wake up within minutes of that alarm. Have you ever done that?
mhm,
Like, that's the power of the human mind.
mhm,
Like, that's how amazing it is. And so instead of just doing that, what if you had an intention before you went to bed to dream about certain things?
mhm,
Ask yourself some kind of question, and don't ruminate over it, but just think about it a little bit. Like, you want to know the answer, give it some positive energy, write it down maybe in a dream journal. And then when you
mhm,
wake up, the first thing I do every morning is I pick up my journal. I only have like 3 or 4 things by my nightstand.
mm.
Actually, that would be a good interview question on a podcast. Like, what are the 3 or 4? What do you have on your nightstand, right?
Uh-huh,
Like, for me, I have like my Aura Ring, like my sleep device. I have like a chili pad kind of thing that cools down my mattress because I sleep better in the cold. Different than my partner who likes a different. She likes a different temperature. Um, I put a glass of water there the night before that's room temperature, so when I wake up, I could just drink that water and stuff like that. And I have a fiction book and a journal, right? And so
mhm,
I'll write in my journal first thing in the morning about the things in my dream, because a lot of times people will dream amazing things, but they'll forget that morning, just like
mhm.
disappear out of their mind, and they wonder where it went. But I found so many of my gems, over the years came from that magic.
Mhm. No, I think that's great advice is to have a journal by the bed, definitely the water, um, and then so I did this brain training thing and they said something very similar. They said before you go to sleep or to take a nap, they say ask theta, and you
Hmm.
ask theta the question or the to solve the problem, and then hopefully it comes to you in your sleep, and again,
Yeah.
not to ruminate on it and then just wake up and write whatever comes to you. So I think that's just so cool. It's just again, it's the magic that gets me because it's so elusive and no one
Yeah.
really knows, and all you have is just your feeling and your intuition about what it is. But nonetheless, it's still really neat.
Yeah, I think that's why we're here. Part of why we're here is like, we have to take time and make time, because we're the greatest project we're ever going to get to work on. So we
Mhm.
have to take time and make time to create magic.